Do you want the truth? Can you handle the truth? Well, we're going to find out in today's anticlimactic Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated, and I hope you indeed have been doing good and doing well, and I hope that your week's been good. It's Thursday, one of the best days of the week, because once Thursday's done, it's Friday, and that means the weekend's here as well, which is also a very exciting time indeed. So good morning to you all. I hope that your day goes quickly. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Matt G, Blackshine, Barry, Runs with Cows, Franklin. We've got Rich and Room Photos. We've got Claire. We've got Jamil, Steve, Tom, Aris Silky. We've got Rob Paul and Rowan. We've got Kieran, Mohammed and Grantley Booze. We've got Steve and Andy. We've got Matt G and Morgie. Good morning to you all. And thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Thank you so much for being here. More AFTV drama. Turkish gone. James has gone. Who else is going to go? This is the international break drama that we need. Not that I know if there is any drama. It's just quite interesting to watch from the sidelines, to be honest. But I was sad to see James's announcement that he's leaving AFTV. For me, he was one of the best people, if not the best, over there. So wish James all the best. He's a big friend of the channel, of course. He's been on here a number of times. I'm sure you'll see him again in the future. But please make sure you send your well wishes to him and, of course, to Turkish, of course, as well on their next steps. I don't know why they've left. Don't ask me. I don't know. I've already had people sending me messages saying, have you seen this? Can you tell me why? I'm not them. Even if they told me, it would not be at my liberty to tell you. But they haven't told me, so I can't tell you why or what's going on. But I just wanted to start the show by sending my well wishes to both of them and hope that they indeed succeed in all their future endeavours, because they certainly deserve to. All right, let's jump on to today's story, shall we? Make sure you're dropping a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Quick little bit of news that kind of dropped just after we finished being live yesterday, so I wanted to address it this morning. And that's that Charles Sagoe Jr. has rejected a call-up from Liberia. He wants more time to think about his future, to discuss his future. And there, of course, are other nations that he can represent, including Ghana, obviously a lot more competitive African side, with all respect to Liberia, of course, but they are obviously a much more competitive African side that more regularly qualify for major tournaments. But Charles Sagoe Jr. at the moment is, and has had a very good start to the season with the Arsenal under-21s. I think he's got 3 goals, 3 assists. And we'll be looking for a January move, maybe permanently. I think he's 21 now, so he needs to be looking at trying to get those permanent moves and playing more regularly at senior level. So maybe that will happen in the summer. Moving forwards, though, to the international break, because it is starting to kick off today, because I can let you know of all the games that Arsenal's players are indeed involved in. In fact, Arsenal have around 15 players involved in international duty for England. Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, Eberechi Eze and Miles Lewis-Skelly. They take today against Wales. The English-Welsh rivalry rekindled today as England take on Wales. And then next week they'll be taking on Latvia. For Spain, Mikel Merino, Martin Zubimendi and David Raya are in action on Saturday. They take on Georgia. I don't think she's going to be able to deal with it. But then on the 14th, they take on Bulgaria as well. Jurriën Timber takes on Malta for the Netherlands on, Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening today. Will be Jurriën Timber's first match. Obviously, did he miss the last round of fixture, or the round before, maybe, because of injury, and then came back. But certainly he's back for this one, and then plays again on Sunday against Malta. Again, back-to-back games for the Netherlands against Malta. Victor Gyökeres is in action for Sweden tomorrow as they take on Switzerland. And then on Monday, they host Kosovo. So 2 home games for Sweden in their matches. William Saliba for France is in action tomorrow against Azerbaijan. And then Iceland take on France on Monday. Leandro Trossard also in action tomorrow against North Macedonia for Belgium before taking on Wales on Monday evening. And then Gabriel Martinelli are taking on South Korea and Japan in some friendly fixtures for Brazil. There is also a Brazilian friendly at the Emirates soon. A Brazilian friendly will be taking place against Senegal in the next international break. So something of a little boost, if you like, that the likes of Gabriel and Martinelli won't be having to travel far because they'll be playing Senegal at the Emirates over the next November international break. Riccardo Calafiori is in action on Saturday as Estonia take on Italy, and then Italy host Israel on Tuesday of next week. And Christian Norgard has also been added to the Denmark squads for their fixtures over the international break. They take on Belarus tonight before then having a game on Sunday against Greece at home to Greece. So a couple of games as Christian Norgard returns to the squad as well for them. And that's all of the internationals going on. Of course, there are some England under-21 games going on, as well as Ethan Nwaneri takes in action. He's playing tomorrow against Moldova. And then, again, the England under-19s are in action on Saturday. I believe that both Tommy Setford and Max Dowman should be involved in that, as far as I'm aware, at least. So on Saturday, they take on Belgium's under-19s. As well. So lots in action, lots of games going on. And, Spain's under-21s. I forgot to include that because Christian Mosquera, of course, will be in action tomorrow against Norway as well. So plenty of games going on. And yes, Daryl, no injuries, please. Abdul Hakim, no injuries, please. Matt G, please, no injuries, please, no injuries, please, no injuries, please, no injuries, please, no injuries. I'm going to stop there because he writes it a fair few times. But let's keep those fingers crossed that we don't have any more problems in the sides because we got a very clean bill of health after the September international break. Let's, fingers crossed, touch wood, keep that energy the same for this one. Now, we get on to the matter of the truth because Jakub Kiwior has been speaking and setting the record straight regarding all things Jakub Kiwior and his exit, of course, from Arsenal. There are a lot of reports that came out kind of dubiously that Mikel Arteta was kind of one of the bigger pushers for him to leave, for Jakub Kiwior to leave. And speaking to TVP Sports, Jakub Kiwior has provided the truth on how both he and then, of course, the events that led to the £45 million investment in Pierre Hincapié eventually joining Arsenal as well. Of course, Kiwior left for a loan move to Porto with a option that they have to buy. That there is really an expectation that both of those loans with options will happen next year. But that is the feeling at the moment. But Kiwior, speaking to TVP Sports, says, I laughed at those stories because it exactly was the opposite. The club didn't want to let me go, and it took a long time for them to agree the transfer. I was valued there. No one wanted to get rid of me. Arteta didn't want me to leave for Portugal either, so I never felt unwanted. The decision to leave was entirely mine. I wanted to play, but with Gabriel and Saliba ahead of me, the chances were very small. He said that I convinced him myself, him being Arteta. I went to talk to Arteta and explained how I saw everything. He understood my ambitions and my desire to play, and he thanked me for how I behaved as both a person and a player. He accepted my reasoning, spoke with the sporting director, and things moved very quickly after that. But it was Porto who convinced me. At one point, they were calling every day. They fought hard and never gave up, even after several rejections from Arsenal. They showed how much they cared, and so I decided to bet on them. I had many offers, but when I saw Jan Bednarek had also joined Porto, I told myself, if it works out, it'll be great. And it really is. And it is. You know, look at the record that Jakub Kiwior has right now with Porto, and it's very good. Several clean sheets with Jan Bednarek, of course, Polish international teammate. And I think having that familiarity, if you like, at Porto is key. I think ultimately comments are a little bit harsh from the likes of D here. He says Kiwior wasn't good enough. Simple. That's not true. If you're coming into an Arsenal team to replace Gabriel against Real Madrid and you're playing both 90 minutes against them and helping us to win 5-1 on aggregate against Real Madrid in the Champions League quarterfinal, you are certainly good enough. He just wasn't on the same kind of level as the likes of Gabriel and Saliba, and so therefore was struggling to get regular game time. And when you see Christian Mosquera, of course, coming in and having the impact that he's having, he is having a great start to life. But he too has made mistakes. Think about the mistake he made at Newcastle that led to the corner, that led to the goal, that nearly cost Arsenal greatly. So, these young defenders, and Kiwior was only, 22 when he joined the club. He's grown at Arsenal, he's improved at Arsenal, and Arsenal are going to get a small profit, of course, from his sale as well. And, of course, have already brought in his replacement in Pierre Hincapié for that £45 million move that is expected to become permanent next summer. But he said, continues, coming from Arsenal, you don't expect a huge wow effect. But we visited the museum, met the club legends, and watched films about Porto's history. I realised I'd truly joined a great club. Farioli, the manager, goes into incredible tactical detail. And when negotiations were ongoing, I already started to watch Porto's games. Sometimes you see his drawings on the board and think it's impossible to execute. But then you watch the video and it works. He pays attention to every tiny detail. I don't see it as a step back moving to Porto. Porto and Arsenal have a lot in common. Great clubs, big ambitions, amazing fans and stadiums, and strong traditions. It wasn't hard to say goodbye to London, especially thinking of the sporting opportunities. And yes, the weather helped too. It rains far less here. I wanted a better climate for my wife and for our 2 dogs. It's a bit of Alexis Sanchez energy there. We can spend more time outdoors by the ocean. The water's cold for now, but one day I'll go for a swim. Kiwior he's a nice lad. I've never had the pleasure of interviewing him. He never was put up for kind of interviews or mix zones or anything like that. And I think that's because his English wasn't at the time particularly strong. It is better now. And in fact, when he did his interview when he first joined Porto, he did it in full English and it was very good. So it showed you the effort that he did put in to learning the language. And he really did put effort in and he really did learn plenty of the language. And he's a lovely guy. I always thought he was somewhat shy, but he never was shy on the pitch. I didn't feel like he had that presence or had that aura or that kind of feel about it. He just seems like a lovely bloke and he just wants to play football. And he's doing that with Porto now and he's doing it very, very well indeed. And Arsenal in the end, as I said before, managed to get themselves, in my opinion, a very good replacement in Pierre Hincapié as well, who, of course, we are hoping to see back from injury after the conclusion of the international break. That's obviously what we want to see and that's what we're obviously going to hope for. As equally as you should be hoping to keep yourself safe and secure on the internet. And there is only indeed one way that you should be looking to do that. And that is, of course, with the help of indeed NordVPN. If you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or indeed a 2-year plan with 4 months of extra thrown in free on top of that too. Who can say any fairer than that? Well, I can. Can I? I don't think I can. No, I thought I could. But you know what? I can't. You can't say any fairer than that. It's a whole 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're going away watching any of the Arsenal games abroad, perhaps this season, a VPN is an absolute must. I remember sitting in my hotel room after the game against Bilbao. I wanted to watch the highlights of the TNT Sports. I couldn't because I was in Spain, and you can't watch the highlights while you're in Spain. Oh, wait, yes, I can because I have access to NordVPN. And not only that, but it gives me the safety and security, of course, as well, when I am indeed using a public Wi-Fi service, perhaps in a hotel, perhaps on a train, things like this, these public Wi-Fi services. You need to give yourself the extra layer of security, and that is what a VPN service does, and that is what Nord is there to do because it is the absolute number one. Thank you to Nord, as always, for sponsoring the channel, and a massive thank you to them, as always. NordVPN.com/Gooner is the link. Go check it out. It's in the description. Speak to you soon. Let's go to part 2. Let's go to part 2 right after this. Right, this is indeed part 2 of today's show, which is, of course, the part of the episode where we jump into the chat box and tackle some of your questions. A chance to ask anything you like, within reason. I'm not telling you certain personal details about myself, but I will indeed answer as many of your questions as I feasibly can on whatever topics it is that you would like to discuss for our second part of the show. So please do drop them in, and I'll do my absolute best to answer them as best as possible. Jason says, on the way from Nottingham to London for the England game tonight. Fantastic. Nottingham is a city very close to my heart. So I hope you enjoy the game, mate. Sally says, do you think there is a way that we can get game time into Ben White's legs during the international break? I just worry that he's going to struggle to get minutes with Timber's fantastic form. Well, there aren't too many players that have stayed behind, of course. You've got a number that are injured. Havertz, Madueke, Odegaard, Nkapie, Jesus. All of these guys are back. And the only two players that are actually fit that have stayed behind are White and Kepa. They're the only two. So unless you give them some time with the youngsters, there obviously will be training sessions. He'll be staying fit, staying active. I imagine he'll be given a bit of a break, of course, I think as well. And I think he needs that. I think there's been times in the season where we've kind of rushed White maybe a little bit. So I think it's a fair question, Sally, to ask, but the consciousness will be something shared, of course, by the club as well. John says, hey, Tom, Declan Rice to captain England today. He's got to be a favourite after the praise that Thomas Tuchel has heaped on him. I mean, what is Harry Kane not there? Have I missed that? I thought Harry Kane was still with the group, in which case, of course, he's going to be captain. But maybe Declan Rice will take the armband, but he won't be if indeed Harry Kane is there, because he'll be captain. Byron says Mosquera is very good, but still very raw. And needs plenty of experience to get to that next level. Just Saying says, amazing how media bash Arteta, but has now become the blueprint to giving it time. Chris says, as Arsenal fans were and should wish all of our ex-players well, the only exceptions are those stabbing us in the back like Van Persie. Raj says, is there any reason why the Premier League doesn't want to have the 3 p.m. games broadcast? Yeah, there is a reason. But it's kind of an outdated reason. The reason why there is a 3 p.m. embargo on games is because the idea was that when it came into effect that games would become broadcast, 3 p.m. kickoffs further down the footballing pyramid, it was feared would be affected by people just staying at home and watching games on the telly instead of actually going and supporting their local team, when instead they could just sit at home and watch the top level of football in the country. So they introduced a 3 p.m. kickoff embargo to try and discourage people from just staying at home and instead going and watching their local lower league team. That's certainly how I've interpreted and learned about the situation as well. So, yeah, for me, I feel as though that it's something that is outdated. It is something that could change, and it is something that I think will be scrapped in the not so distant future, because I think we've learned that dedicated fans to their respective clubs lower down the footballing pyramid will still go to their teams regardless of whether there is broadcasted games on at the same time. Game says, Tom, let's say the unfortunate thing happens and Arsenal win the Premier League and or the Champions League, and Mikel decides he's had enough of Arsenal fans. You've got to go for Iraola and Glasner. Who are you pick? Iraola all day long. Richard says, Tom, why did Odegaard continue to play after his injury? With our squad depth as it is, I would like to think that that they are instructed not to risk even the slightest niggle and come off immediately. Well, the problem is, Richard, that there's a good chance that he didn't know how bad it was until he started to run on it. He went down very soon after the moment. It was kind of a contact injury. It wasn't like it happened off the ball. And sometimes when you have a bit of an impact injury like that, you just think you can run it off. And you think you can just kind of, you got a bit of a dead leg, or, you've had a painful clash and it'll just go away. He didn't really know. So with kind of situations like that, it's very difficult. And I wouldn't be pointing fingers really too much at people. There are instances where I think there can be criticisms of players continuing despite being injured. But when it's an impact injury like that, as it was, you don't necessarily know how serious it is or how bad it is until you've kind of run on it a bit more. So if you just took every single player after an impact injury, you'd have no subs left. It's probably fair to say. Byron says, Tom, how many goals do you think Gyökeres will get in all competitions this season? Also, will you possibly making some more content with James in the future? I mean, certainly. James is always very much welcome back here, and is certainly one of the better commentators, I think, in the Arsenal space. But on Gyökeres, I think you're looking to 20 plus. That's certainly what I'm hoping to see, 20 plus goals. I think he will get the ball rolling. I think he will certainly find his feet, and the goals will start to flow. Sam says, how do you like your steak, Tom? Depends what steak it is, mate. Can't just be like, can't just be the same all the way through every single type of steak, every single type of cut. It's got to be different. If I'm having a ribeye, probably go medium rare, sort of thing. If I'm having a really good fillet steak, it's probably closer to a rare. And if you go into somewhere like Spain, you get like the proper like T-bone steaks. You pretty much have those blue. They're so good, like that you don't even really need them. I remember when I went to San Sebastian last year, went to Bar Nestor, and they serve you kind of. They don't ask you how you want it cooked. You get given the steak as it is intended, which is barely cooked. It's served on kind of a really hot, fiery hot plate. So it's basically cooking as it's served to you, and you basically, allow it to cook a little bit more in front of you and rest, and then, you have it there. But the steaks over there are so good. They barely need any cooking whatsoever because they're just so good. But yeah, it depends on the type of cut, mate. It can't be the same. You shouldn't ask for the same cook on every single type of cut of steak. It's important to make sure you get it right for each one. Mix, thank you so much for the kind donation. He says, I just think it's crazy how people think that maybe the squad doesn't have the mentality to win the league, but if we don't win the league, that it is then a failure. That is the what's the word? The paradox of supporting a football club like Arsenal these days, isn't it? It's we don't have a good enough manager, we don't have a good enough team. We didn't win the league. Get rid of them. Where are you at? Claire says, are you watching the new Traitors series? Of course I'm watching the new Traitors series. Of course I am. It's absolutely brilliant. And if you're not watching Traitors, you definitely should. It's a brilliant, brilliant TV show. I've played the Traitors game in London. They do like an experience in London. I have been a traitor before in the London experience. And it is a lot of fun. I would highly recommend it for anybody that enjoys the program to do the experience in London, because it is very similar. Obviously, what you can fit into 2 hours in a room is pretty good. So did enjoy it. Did get to the final table. Did get found out. So we'll say that. Sally says, do you think there is a way that... Oh, sorry, we've kind of done that. John says, hey, Tom, Declan Rice is captain. We've kind of done that. We've scrolled up a little bit, haven't I? That's why I'm seeing the same questions. Nick says, will we ever go back to 3 subs? Or is it going to be 5 now, the standard? I think 5 is going to carry on. DJ says, what grade is Ødegaard's MCL injury? We still don't know. We haven't been given kind of any detail yet on that. As far as I was aware, they were kind of waiting for the swelling to still go down, so they had a better idea of how bad it was. I hope it's not too bad. I certainly hope that. I've not heard anything suggest it's really, really bad, but that's mainly because we haven't really got any information yet about how bad that it is. But hopefully, as an MCL, as I said before, that's if you are suffering a knee injury, that's probably the one that you'd want if you had to have a knee injury, basically. Raj says, I'm still wondering, do players not have a Whoop band or a similar track sleep and recovery app? As Arteta said that he only found out later that injured players had bad nights. I assume that as much of them is being monitored as feasibly possible. So they must have some kind of indicator, I think, on that. Timmy says, do we have a clause on the Kiwior? Yeah, there is a buy clause that, as I said before, there is an expectation that deal to Porto will become permanent next year. Matt says, new Traitors? Why didn't I know this? I love Traitors. I'm watching it today. It's the celebrity version. So there's a brand new celebrity series of the Traitors out. It's got some pretty good people in it. Stephen Fry's in it. I mean, that alone makes me want to watch it, to be honest. But there's some other great... I mean, Joe Wilkinson makes me laugh so much. So it is always a joy. Even Alan Carr makes me laugh a lot as well, to be fair. There's a lot of good characters in that show. So yeah, it's a good one. If you're based abroad, you can definitely watch the iPlayer, but you might need a VPN. Just bear that in mind. John says, hey, Tom, on Rice, Tuchel revealed Jordan Henderson, John Stones and Declan Rice are his 3 options to captain the side in Kane's absence. So I think it will be Rice. Maybe, if he's on the pitch, he's the most likely to be on the pitch, I think. AFC Tilala says, Tom, you took the words right out of my mouth with regards to Steak. Great answer. Well said. Thank you, mate. Chris says, does anyone know how to turn off autocorrect? It keeps typing words I didn't write. I wrote we should, but it typed were should. It's very annoying. I don't know if you can turn autocorrect off, Chris, but I would recommend not doing that because you'll find yourself making even more mistakes, I think, in the future if you turn it off. Fuad says, Tom, I hope you don't mind me doing a small plug, but I just started a podcast called the Screen Mates Pod where we talk about TV and movies. It's audio only, but we're on Spotify, Apple, and give us a listen. There you go. Puce says, how do you fancy our chances against these stubborn Fulham, Palace and Brighton sides? I feel pretty good, Puce. I feel pretty darn good. At the moment, Arsenal have been very competitive so far this season. They've been in a very good place this season. They've looked like they've swatted teams aside that, frankly, they should be beating. And only those City and Liverpool games have been kind of the ones we've looked at and gone, we expect to drop points maybe in those games, but it's the others that we look much better. And I think that certainly we'll be in a very good place to play all of those three teams. Brighton, of course, is a League Cup game, whereas the other two are both Premier League games. And Palace are the toughest of the three. And I think that Matt G and D both agree with that, although they did just lose, of course, to Everton. So Nicholas says, Tom, if the club gave you access to shadow one player for an entire day, who would you choose? It's quite a good question. Which player would I choose? I mean, Calafiori, and I'd have to take Laura with me. I thought she might kill me if I didn't. I'm trying to think who would be the most interesting to kind of shadow, who would be the most kind of volatile, who would get you the most stories. Who, Calafiori's pretty good. I feel like some of the youngsters as well, like Miles Lewis-Skelly. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and it's fair to say that his media training it's still improving. He still says some funny things. So maybe like Miles would be quite funny to shadow for a day, and you probably get some great stories from him, and probably a lot of honesty, as well. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Calafiori, would be quite funny. So I feel like Calafiori would be a good one. Let's go to Steve. Says, Tom, could we ground share at Spurs for 2 years? I doubt it, mate. I highly, highly doubt it. Jack says, hi, Tom. Love the channel. Does it ever sink in that you get to do what you do as a full-time job? Thanks, Jack. And yes, it does. I say quite often I don't take it for granted, the position that I'm in and the job that I've got. And it is a very, very much a privilege to be able to do it. And even the times where there are tough days, and there are tough days, as I've talked about before, like when Arsenal lose, I lose twice. I lose as a fan, and then I lose as a fan who works in the sport and has to write and talk about that defeat a lot. So it's probably more than losing twice. It feels right. But when we win, you win twice, and we win a lot more than we lose these days. So that kind of does help. But yeah, I mean, there's been a number of times where there's been like pinch me moments, and it is funny. Things do get taken for granted quite quickly at times, even though I don't take the actual position for granted at all. There's just certain moments where you're like, oh, I'm sitting next to so-and-so, or I'm chatting to so-and-so, or I'm now chatting to former Arsenal players on the regular. I'm chatting to Arsenal current players or the manager. It is, there's funny little quips and stories about, like, you'll be walking into the press conference and you happen to cross paths with Mikel as you're walking in. You're having a conversation about the holiday that you had or whatever. Just things like that, There are little weird moments that you in the moment you're like, you don't realize, and afterwards you go, that was weird, weren't it? Like, that's strange how that happens and how that works. So yeah, it's a madness. It's a madness to be where we are now. Lisanne says, when does Nonzinho, Noni Madueke, expect to return? Probably November. I think probably late November is what I would assume, based upon what we've kind of heard so far. Jonathan says, I hear people say tickets are often available on the ticket exchange right up to the day of the game, which goes against what I thought when it's a lottery. Anyone got tips on getting those tickets? Well, to be on the ticket exchange, and tell me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure you have to enter the ballot, be unsuccessful, and then you get access to the ticket exchange. So that, I think, is the one to do. Matt says, I want a chicken shop dates episode with Laura and Calafiori. Yes, yeah, 100%. I mean, if Arsenal are smart, and the chicken shop date, from Amelia de Moldenberg's probably been pretty well copyrighted by this stage. But if they wanted to do something similar, Laura is without a doubt your host. Like, it's not even a debate. Laura would host that show, and she'd do a brilliant job. So it's something I'd love to see. Something I'd love to produce. I'd be well involved. We'd love being involved in something like that. But yeah, definitely. That's something that needs to happen at some point. Steve says, do you have a view on Barcelona versus Villarreal to play their league home games in Miami? I feel this has massive. Yes, I do, Steve. I have a very, very strong opinion on this. My opinion is that it's disgraceful. And I know that there are fans that listen from abroad who will disagree with me. And you'll know that I am so supportive of accessibility to our fellow Arsenal supporters who are not local or not here and not able to access games. And that's why I think that there should be more effort made in pre-seasons to travel to more places like Africa, like Australia, like South America. These need more access. Fans in these nations and these continents need more access to these games. I'm so supportive of accessibility. However, as soon as you start to move competitive fixtures in a league season away from home grounds, you undermine the fairness and the integrity of the sport. Because while you might turn around and say that, it's just one game, and Barcelona against Villarreal being played in Miami instead of playing at the Camp Nou, Villarreal now get to go and now don't have to play at the Camp Nou this season. Imagine if they're in a race for Champions League qualification or another European competition qualification or a relegation battle. Going to the Camp Nou is one of the trickiest, if not the trickiest game to play in Spain. And Villarreal don't have to do that this season or whenever it's happening or next season because they're now playing away from home, and so are Barcelona playing away from home in a different stadium. So it is not the same. It undermines the legitimacy of the competition and the fairness of the competition. And not only that, but I think that this is a real danger to the sport in general. There's too much commercialization of the sport as it is. And I remember, and I know a lot of fans remember very specifically, and it's a topic that I feel very strong about and plan to ask questions on about in the future. But you will remember that Josh Kroenke said in a post-Super League fiasco meeting with heads of different Arsenal supporters groups that he promised and he guaranteed that Arsenal would not play a home game away from North London. His words, his promise, his guarantee. And I sincerely hope that that is shared by everyone at the club, because that should never, ever, ever, ever happen. Ever. Ever. Have I made myself clear? It shouldn't happen. As Claire says, it's the start of a slippery slope. Chances as a season ticket holder, I'd be fuming. Raditya says, as an Indonesian, we would love it if we could get a competitive fixture in Asia, but I agree with you, Tom. Football is tied with the home stadium. And I respect that hugely. And I empathize with you. And I think that there should be more effort made in pre-season to travel to countries and places where Arsenal haven't necessarily been to before. It means I would be going to those places, of course, too, I would hope. But it is something that needs to be addressed, and it's something that needs to be also very legitimately kept to, in my opinion. Dee said those words need to be immortalized somewhere close to the stadium. Well, probably, yes. Probably. John says, hey, Tom, if we played at Wembley, would we play every game like a cup final? I think that it wouldn't necessarily be like a cup final in that way, the way we played them, but I think that the opposition that we would play against would treat that trip very differently than they would if they're coming to the Emirates. It would be a very different feel than playing at the Emirates. Rob says, how do people honestly justify the position that Arteta should go at the end of the season if we don't win silverware? Surely what he's done whilst in the first job as gaffer has been phenomenal. Look, I think that's a whole separate podcast, Rob, but I'm in agreement that I think that you have to kind of wait and look at the whole context of a season before you start having conversations about managers and futures and stuff. You don't do that at the beginning. You don't do that in binary terms. You don't do that. And I know it's a very TalkSport-y, Sky Sports-y, clickbaity, segmenty kind of question to be like, if he doesn't do this, what should happen? If this doesn't happen, what should happen? I haven't got a clue what should happen because I haven't seen what has happened yet. And I can't have an answer to that question without seeing what happened. Football's not binary, and I don't think of it in a binary way. So, it's just not the way it goes. Wazza says, that's correct. If you forget to do/don't enter the ballot, you're unable to even access the exchange. So there you go. If indeed you don't enter the ballot, you can't get into the exchange. So make sure that you always enter the ballot. Simple as that. And says, Tom, we haven't done a pre-season in Australia. Have we never done one? I know the women's team have been to Australia, but I don't know if indeed Arsenal have ever been to Australia for a pre-season. That would feel odd to me. That would feel strange to me if we haven't been to Australia. Let me see if I can find any evidence to suggest that we have been to Australia. Oh, hold on. 2017. 2017? Were we in Australia in 2017? That's my question. Because maybe we were indeed in Australia, but maybe the game was played elsewhere. But it looks like we played in Australia in 2017. So, yeah, that we have. Yeah, I did think that we had been to Australia. So, yeah, 2017. That's when Arsenal were there. And Alex also says maybe in 2014. I can check that for you as well. Did Arsenal go in 2014? All I've typed in, I've just gone on to Getty Images basically and gone Arsene Wenger and Australia. So, and it shows you that indeed, yes, we did go to Australia in 2017. Boom. We have our answer to the question. So Nicholas says, I watched them play in Australia. So there you go. D says, let's just let the season play out. Fans should be behind the manager in times like this until he gives us a reason not to get behind him. Piyush says, it's really madness some of us be out here wishing to come to the Emirates as in hearing about atmospheres in home stadiums at Miami. This is crap. I do tend to agree. Rich says, why would you want to do the preseason in the middle of Australian winter? It can reach minus 10 degrees. Can it? Really? Minus 10? I mean, as a former geography teacher, that absolutely surprises me if that's true. But I might be wrong. B-Boy Gaming says, yeah, I see where people are coming from about the international games, but it would be nice to watch Arsenal coming to Australia. And Bailey says, yes, they have been to Australia. Really bad advertising of their videos. Aussie Gooner, who joins us in the chat, says, would Havertz have more goals than Gyökeres so far? Maybe. I mean, he's more adjusted, isn't he? He's more used to his teammates. There's an argument that he is more settled. So he potentially could have by now. But over the course of the whole season, you would hope that that wouldn't be the case. Right. We're going to wrap the show up there. One more show for you tomorrow. Then I'm taking Saturday and Sunday off. I'll be back for you on Monday morning to talk about all things Arsenal, of course, as well. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Greatly appreciate your time. And I hope you've had a great start to your week and that the end to it is also going to be strong. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.